What if your enemy built a weapon so strange, so unconventional, that your greatest military minds dismissed it as a joke? What if they laughed at its bizarre design, confident that it violated every known principle of aerial warfare? And what if that joke turned out to be a carefully engineered nightmare, a predator that would rewrite the rules of the sky and hunt them with terrifying efficiency? This is the story of a fighter plane that was mocked, underestimated, and then feared. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're climbing into the cockpit of one of World War II's most misunderstood and revolutionary aircraft, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. We'll uncover how the battle-hardened aces of Germany's Luftwaffe went from laughing at this American oddity to developing special tactics just to survive an encounter with it, realizing far too late that its supposed greatest weakness, its twin engines, was actually its most deadly advantage. Our story begins not in the halls of command, but in the vast, unforgiving emptiness of the North Atlantic. August 14th, 1942. 200 miles southwest of Iceland, the world is a monochrome canvas of grey water and grey sky. The only texture is the endless procession of white caps on the swells rolling beneath. Inside the cramped cockpit of his P-38F Lightning, Second Lieutenant Elza Sherhan adjusts his oxygen mask, the rubber cold against his face. The world outside is framed by the distinctive twin booms of his aircraft, two powerful arms reaching forward, cradling him and his arsenal. Beside him, Major John Wellman holds formation in another Lightning. For hours, their patrol had been a mind-numbing routine, the steady, reassuring thrum of their four combined Allison engines, the only sound over the hiss of the radio. Then, a shape, a dark speck on the horizon, growing steadily larger. A Focke-Wulf FW-200 Condor, Germany's four-engine maritime patrol bomber, a scourge of the Atlantic, returning from a hunt against Allied convoys. The engagement had already begun. A Royal Air Force Northrop Nomad had spotted the Condor and radioed its position. A P-40 Warhawk, flown by Lieutenant Joseph Schaefer, struck first, its machine guns stitching a line of smoke across one of the Condor's engines. But now it was the Lightning's turn. Sherhan and Wellman pushed their throttles forward. The response was immediate, a surge of raw power that a single-engine fighter simply could not match. The P-38s didn't just accelerate, they lunged. Closing the distance in seconds, they pressed their triggers. An avalanche of firepower erupted from their noses. 4.5 caliber machine guns and a 20mm cannon per aircraft. Unlike wing-mounted guns that had to be harmonized to converge at a specific distance, the P-38's entire arsenal was packed into the central nose cone. The streams of fire were a concentrated buzzsaw, effective at any range. The Condor's fuselage simply disintegrated under the onslaught, erupting in a ball of orange flame. The massive German bomber tumbled out of the sky and vanished into the Atlantic. The American pilots circled once, the grim conformation complete, and turned for Iceland. They had just helped destroy the first Luftwaffe aircraft shot down by the United States Army Air Forces, and the P-38 Lightning, the strange twin-boomed aircraft that delivered the killing blows, was about to earn a reputation that would force the greatest fighter pilots in the world to tear up their rule books. The Luftwaffe didn't know it yet, but this American fighter would prove that two engines weren't a liability in aerial combat. They were a weapon. 3 months earlier, intelligence reports on this new American fighter had circulated through the German fighter pilot community. The photographs showed an aircraft that looked like it was designed by a committee that never spoke to each other.
twin engines mounted in booms that stretched all the way back to a twin tail, a central pod, a nozzle for the pilot and weapons, tricycle landing gear. It was an affront to orthodox fighter design. At his headquarters in France, Major Adolf Galland, one of Germany's most brilliant and experienced fighter leaders, reviewed the intelligence. The assessment was simple, almost dismissive. Twin-engine fighters were fundamentally inferior in a dogfight. They had proven this themselves. Their own Messerschmitt Bf-110 Zerstörer had been conceived as a heavy, long-range destroyer. It was supposed to sweep the skies clean. But over the skies of Britain in 1940, the nimble Spitfires and Hurricanes had slaughtered them. The Bf-110 was heavy, unmaneuverable, and a massive target. It was prey. This new American P-38 seemed to have the same flaws, only magnified. At over 10 tons fully loaded, it was a monster, weighing nearly twice as much as a P-51 Mustang. Its unique design surely created immense drag, and the asymmetric thrust, if one engine failed, it would be a death sentence. German pilots, men who lived and breathed the art of single-engine combat, saw the photos and laughed. They concluded the Americans had built a clumsy reconnaissance plane, maybe a long-range patrol aircraft, but certainly not a fighter that could dare to challenge the legendary Messerschmitt Bf-109 or the formidable Focke-Wulf FW-190. This assessment would prove to be one of the most catastrophic intelligence failures of the war. November 19th, 1942. The skies over Tunis, North Africa. The morning sun casts long shadows across the desert. 18 P-38 Lightnings of the 1st and 14th Fighter Groups are shepherding a formation of B-17 flying fortresses. High above them, Hauptmann Franziskett, leading elements of Jagdgeschwader 53, spots the Americans. Franziskett is a seasoned veteran with 140 missions and 19 victories under his belt. He knows exactly how to deal with twin-engine fighters. The doctrine is clear: attack from above and behind, where their poor maneuverability and large size make them vulnerable. His Bf-110 G6 peel off and dive. What happened next shattered every single one of his preconceptions. The P-38 pilots spotted the diving Germans instantly, but instead of tightening their formation into a defensive circle, they broke hard into the attack. Franziskett watched in disbelief as the massive Lightnings turned inside his diving Messerschmitts, their turning radius seeming impossible for an aircraft of that size and weight. He suddenly found himself looking not at the tail of a lumbering bomber-destroyer, but at the nose of a P-38, pulling lead for a deflection shot. A torrent of 5-caliber rounds and 20mm cannon shells converged on a single point in space where his plane was about to be. One burst could saw a Bf-109 in half.
Franziskett threw his aircraft into a desperate high-G turn, the airframe groaning in protest. The American pilot stayed with him, glued to his tail, inside his turn. Impossible. A 10-ton aircraft shouldn't be able to do this. But this one could. Its pilot was using combat flap settings, a feature that dramatically altered the P-38's handling, turning a heavy fighter into an agile brawler. Franziskett survived that first encounter, but 3 of his pilots did not. He would later become the Luftwaffe's top P-38 ace with 17 kills, but he never forgot that first day. He wrote in his memoirs that the American pilot who nearly killed him taught him a vital lesson: never,
ever underestimate an enemy based on what you think their aircraft should be able to do. The Germans' world had just been turned upside down. The easy kill was fighting back and winning. This is the moment the legend of the P-38 truly begins, and we're just getting started. If you're fascinated by these moments where history is rewritten in the skies, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss where this story goes next. So what was the secret? Why was this plane so different? The answer lies not on the battlefield, but on the drafting tables of Lockheed back in 1937. At Wright Field, Ohio, two visionary officers, First Lieutenants Benjamin Kelsey and Gordon Seville, drafted a document called Circular Proposal X608. It was a request for a new kind of fighter, a twin-engine interceptor with performance goals that seemed like science fiction, a top speed of 360 miles per hour, and the ability to climb to 20,000 feet in just 6 minutes. No existing fighter could come close. At Lockheed, a brilliant young engineer named Clarence Kelly Johnson, the future father of the legendary Skunk Works, led the team that tackled this challenge. Instead of trying to force a twin-engine plane to act like a single-engine one, his team embraced the configuration. After discarding dozens of conventional designs, Johnson sketched a radical concept: 2 engines in streamlined booms, a central pod for the pilot and guns, and the booms supporting a twin tail. This design was revolutionary. The propellers rotated in opposite directions, completely eliminating the powerful engine torque that made single-engine fighters like the Bf-109 notoriously difficult to handle on takeoff. The nose-mounted weapons required no complex convergence adjustments. The distributed weight, contrary to intuition, actually improved the aircraft's roll rate. Most importantly, the design was aerodynamically clean, minimizing drag. On June 23, 1937, the Army awarded Lockheed the contract for the XP-38. The prototype first flew on January 27, 1939, with Lieutenant Kelsey himself at the controls. It was a revelation. It shattered the speed requirements, reaching 414 miles per hour. To showcase this incredible machine, the head of the Army Air Corps, General Hap Arnold, authorized a transcontinental speed record attempt. On February 11, 1939, Kelsey flew from California to New York in 7 hours and 2 minutes. Then, disaster. On final approach, carburetor icing killed both engines. The prototype crashed and was destroyed. But the crash paradoxically saved the program. Kelsey walked away without a scratch. The central pilot nacelle had remained intact, while the engine booms were demolished. The design was proven to be incredibly safe. The Army ordered 13 more. By the time the P-38 reached combat, its early teething problems were solved, and Lockheed Tice pilots had developed tactics that played to its unique strengths. Not tight turning fights, but devastating high-speed boom and zoom attacks, and vertical maneuvers that left single-engine opponents stalled and helpless. The most famous demonstration of the P-38's unique capabilities came on April 18, 1943. American codebreakers had intercepted a Japanese message detailing the exact flight path of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of the Pearl Harbor attack. He would be flying over 435 miles of open ocean to inspect bases. The only Allied fighter in the world with the range to intercept him was the P-38 Lightning. The mission was a masterpiece of planning and execution. 16 P-38s from the 339th Fighter Squadron flew over 430 miles at treetop level to avoid radar, maintaining total radio silence, navigating by compass and wristwatch. At precisely 0934, exactly as predicted, they spotted Yamamoto's 2 G4M Betty bombers escorted by 6 Zero fighters. Captain Thomas Lanphier and Lieutenant Rex Barber broke off and attacked. While the escorts were engaged, Barber lined up on Yamamoto's bomber. A single 2-second burst from his 450 caliber guns and 20mm cannon tore the bomber's wing off. The aircraft carrying the commander of the Imperial Japanese Navy crashed into the jungle. It was a mission no other fighter could have accomplished. A strategic assassination that changed the course of the war in the Pacific, made possible only by the long legs and twin-engine reliability of the P-38. This incredible feat cemented the P-38's place in history, proving that its design was not just innovative, but strategically decisive. We pour hundreds of hours into researching and bringing these incredible stories to light, and your support by hitting that subscribe button truly helps us continue to dig deep and share them with the world. Thank you. Back in Europe and North Africa, the Germans were learning their own lessons. Johannes Steinhoff, a high-scoring ace, acknowledged that while his 109 might have been slightly faster in level flight, a dogfight with a P-38 was daunting because its turning radius was much smaller. On August 25, 1943, Johannes and his wingmen stumbled upon a formation of 140 inbound P-38s. In an act of incredible bravery or foolishness, they attacked head-on. Steinhoff shot one down before escaping. That night, he shared wine with the captured American pilot, Lieutenant Williams, who explained the versatility of the Lightning. He told Steinhoff its greatest strength was redundancy. If a single-engine fighter took a hit to the engine, it was over. A Lightning pilot could shut down a damaged engine, feather the propeller to reduce drag, and limp home hundreds of miles on the other. This survivability gave its pilots a confidence their enemies could only envy. The Germans developed counter-tactics. They learned the P-38's initial roll rate was slow, so a well-timed flick roll and dive could create separation. They learned to never, ever engage one head-on, calling it suicide against its concentrated firepower. But just as they adapted, the P-38 evolved. In August 1943, the P-38J model arrived. It was a game-changer. It featured hydraulically boosted ailerons that dramatically improved the roll rate, erasing one of its key vulnerabilities. More importantly, it introduced dive flaps. Previously, the P-38 suffered from compressibility in a steep dive, where shockwaves would form on the wings, locking up the controls. German pilots used this to escape. With the new dive flaps, a P-38 pilot could follow a diving FW-190 all the way to the ground. The escape hatch was closed. Later models even fixed the notoriously cold cockpit, a problem that had caused pilots to suffer frostbite at the high altitudes over Europe.